Hello, Professor Zaki. As presented in July 2014, our work is based on the paper published by Alberto Caimon and Neil Friel in January 2011 about Bayesian inference for exponential random graph models. Our presentation is organized in 5 sections: Introduction, the statistical ERGM model, Bayesian inference for the ERGM model, the BERGMR package, conclusion, and future work. Our motivation was to work with a statistical model that better represents social relationships and acquire the knowledge of Bayesian model implementation. And the objectives were understand the algorithms used to fit the model, know how to use an implementation of the model, and reproduce at least one of the results presented in the article. ERGM are statistical models for network structure analysis based on links between nodes to understand how and why the relations are formed. The model is based on the hypothesis that these links, which are considered random variables, self-organize in small structures called configurations. Network statistics are incorporated into the ERGM models as sufficient statistics associated to parameters, which define the importance of each one. These statistics are sums of the number of configurations presented in the observed graph or any function of them. The most important applications for ERGM models are social networks, but they are also used in biology to understand the interaction between genes, proteins, chemical compounds, and etc. The topological structure of a graph on any nodes is measured by a random adjacency matrix Y, which is a square matrix with n rows and n columns. The edge Yij is equal to 1 if the pair Ij is connected and equal to 0 otherwise. Edges connecting a node to itself are not allowed. The ERGM model represents the probability distribution of Y with the likelihood function that we can see in the slides, where Sy is a known vector of sufficient statistics, like the number of edges, degree statistics, triangles, etc. Theta is a vector of model parameters. A positive parameter value for theta represents a higher probability of the corresponding statistic to be observed in the data than would otherwise be expected by chance. And finally, z-theta is the normalizing constant. Estimating an ERGM model has some difficulties. One of them is the normalizing constant, which is extremely difficult to evaluate for all but trivially small graphs. The other one is degeneracy, which refers to a probability model defined by a certain value of theta that places most of its probability mass on a small number of graph topologies, for example, empty graphs or complete graphs. But Snijders et al. In 2006 proposed new specifications to mitigate this problem. The article makes use of them to analyze one of the datasets. In Bayesian inference, the interest is in the posterior distribution. A naive implementation of Metropolis-Hessens algorithm proposing to move from theta to theta star would require calculation of the ratio between z-theta and z-theta star at each sweep of the algorithm, which is unworkable due to the presence of the normalizing constant z-theta and z-theta star. The algorithm presented in the paper overcomes the problem of sampling from a distribution with intractable normalizing constant by adapting a version of the exchange algorithm for the ERGM context presented by Murray et al. In 2006. The algorithm samples from an augmented distribution, where P of y star given theta star is the same distribution as the original distribution on which the data y is defined, and h of theta star given theta is any arbitrary distribution for the augmented variables theta star, which might depend on the variables theta, for example, a random walk distribution centered at theta. The exchange algorithm is composed basically by 2 steps. The first one is the Gibbs update of theta star and y star, where you draw theta star from H, and given theta star you draw y star. The second step proposed exchange move from theta to theta star with the metropolis-Hessian probability. We can see that all intractable constants cancel above and below the fraction. In practice, the exchange move proposed to offer the observed data y the auxiliary parameter theta star, and similarly to offer the auxiliary data y star the parameter theta. In step 1.2, the simulation of the network given a parameter value is accomplished by an MCMC algorithm. The proposed move is accepted if there is good agreement between auxiliary data and observed data in terms of summary statistics. A good approximation to the true posterior density is guaranteed by the fact that the summary statistics are sufficient statistics of the probability model. Despite of the fact that the single-site update procedure is a good one, it can lead to slow mixing if there is a strong temporal dependency in the state process. In order to improve mixing, the authors propose to use an adaptive direction sampling method, as stated by Roberts and Gilkes 1994, similar to that of Terbraak and Vlucht 2008. A population MCMC approach consisting of a collection of age chains which interact with one another is considered. Here, the state space is θ1 to θh, with target distribution as the product of the posterior distribution of θ1 to θh. As stated by the authors, the single-site sampler would need to be run for around 3 times more interactions than the population MCMC sampler. The BERGM is an R package that implements the Bayesian paradigm for exponential random graph models according to the adaptive direction sampling method. It uses MCMC algorithm for inference and modeling. It provides goodness of fit procedures, and it is based on the ERGM package, which is part of the StatNet suite. The analysis that we reproduced was based on the molecule synthetic network dataset. We can see that this dataset has 20 nodes and 28 adds, and it is not directed. Here we can see that the graph is sparse, with approximately 15% of density, and that it has 190 dyads. Here, the objective is to show the degree distribution. It's easy to see by the visualization that the graph is sparse. At the left side of the picture, from the MCMC results, we see that the posterior density estimates of the 8 chains are similar to each other. Aggregating the output across all chains, the posterior estimates for the first 3 parameters indicate an overall tendency for nodes to have a limited number of multiple adds, while the positive estimates relative to the triangle parameter capture the propensity towards transitivity. From the right side of the picture, it can be seen that the autocorrelations of the parameters decay quickly around lag 200. This picture presents the results of the Bayesian goodness of fit procedure. As stated by the authors, in order to do this, 100 graphs are simulated from 100 independent realizations taken from the estimated posterior distribution and compared to the observed graph in terms of high-level characteristics which are not modeled explicitly, namely degree distributions for degrees greater than 3, the minimum geodesic distance, and the number of edgewise shared partners. The red lines indicate that the structure of the observed graph can be considered as a possible realization of the posterior density. From the results presented so far, we conclude that our objective was achieved, and that the exponential random graph model is a very challenging subject in the sense that you have to know about social relationships, graph topologies and measures, programming languages, and MCMC methods. For future work, we plan to understand the approximate Bayesian computation method, implement it in R to compare results with the BERGM package. Our expectation is to obtain an improvement in the performance and mixing among the parameters. For the next 14 seconds, you can see the references. Thank you.